Welcome to The Standard. From Vancouver, I'm Peter Klein. Coming up on the show tonight, Robert Mugabe hated him so much, he was turfed out of Zimbabwe illegally. Journalist Andrew Meldrum will be here to talk about the troubles in Africa. But first, an exclusive interview with one of the world's richest men. According to Forbes magazine, Jim Pattison is worth an estimated $2.3 billion. His business empire includes car dealerships, TV and radio stations, advertising firms, and supermarkets, along with stakes in companies like BCE and forestry giant Canfor. Mr. Pattison recently granted us an exclusive interview dealing with a wide range of subjects, from his perspectives on the business world to his own personal beliefs. Here's part one, taped at his executive offices in Vancouver. Thank you very much for joining us. A lot of people consider you the Warren Buffett of certainly British Columbia, if not Canada. People listen when you speak. So I want to ask you about your thoughts about the economy, first of all. When this economic downturn happened last year or so, were you surprised?
Yes, surprised to the degree of the hit. Yeah, absolutely.
What was it about the degree of it? I mean, you expected something was coming?
Well, you know, we've had a long run of good times for a long time, and things go in cycles, so you know that after a long run of good times, you usually get a correction somewhere. But the degree and the hit was something that we didn't anticipate.
Now, you have holdings in Canada and in the U.S., pretty significant in both countries. So probably better than anyone, you've seen the comparison between the two. And a lot of people have said, certainly in the States, that Canada's fared much better. Some have even said Canada's coming out of a recession. The U.S. is far from that. Why do you think the economic downturn has hit the two countries so differently?
Well, I think that there's no question the U.S. has been hit harder than Canada in a significant way. And I think that, you know, we have a lot of good things going for us with Western Canada. You know, we've had a strong oil and gas industry, and our resources are, you know, natural resources are strong. Agriculture's been very good, and a lot of the commodities have done well over quite a long period of time. And our banks have been very solid. The banks have been much better shape, as you know, than the American banks. And that stabilizes a lot of things.
Is that because of different regulations, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think regulations are part of it. Also, I think Canadians tend to be more conservative. And certainly the Canadian banks, as a general proposition, have had good management.
How have you personally been affected by the downturn? Have you lost a lot?
Well, we have lost a lot. We have lost some money initially in the stock market, but you don't lose it till you actually sell it. But having said that, our businesses have been actually doing quite well. We're highly diversified, and the businesses that we're in have been acting very well. So we're very grateful for the whole way our company's acted. But certainly, initially, when the stock market got hit, we're in the stock market from time to time and different things. So we felt it. But our underlying business has been very good.
One of your secrets to success seems like it's that you're diversified. You really have, you have a really broad range of holdings.
Well, that was our whole basis. Was originally I was a car dealer, and we lived in BC, and the BC was very cyclical economy because it went the way the forest industry went. And you had good forest years and bad lumber years, and our economy really was up and down. And the car business was also a cyclical business, been tied that with BC. So I decided to strike out and try to not have all our eggs in one basket. And so far, it's worked out okay.
What do you think the average person at home who doesn't have billions of dollars in holdings, what could the average person do to protect themselves and perhaps learn from some of the lessons that you've done?
Well, I think just fundamentally, nothing in the world usually goes straight up. And I think it's always, in the early years when you're trying to buy a house and buy furniture, then you're highly leveraged, if you like. You borrow as much as you can because you're starting your family out and all the things that all the young people do. But as time goes by, you want to try and set a little bit of money aside so you don't spend everything. So when a rainy day does come, it sees you through, because there's usually always a rainy day, I find, and there's always some really very good runs of good times. They go in cycles.
Well, looking at the bigger picture in Canada, are you satisfied with how Stephen Harper has handled the economic crisis?
I think Stephen Harper's done a very good job, and Jim Flaherty, in my opinion.
Anything you'd want them to do differently?
Oh, there probably is, but I'll leave that to somebody else.
What about Obama? What about in the U.S.? How has it been handled, in your opinion, so far?
I think the stimulus of all the G20 is probably the right thing to do, and I think they've done it. But somewhere the piper has to get paid here. But certainly I think the stimulus was the right thing to do.
But there's much less stimulus in Canada compared to the way it's been handled in the U.S.
But Canada didn't have the same kind of heat that the Americans got real quick either. We didn't have the housing issue. We didn't have the banking issue. We had a lot of better things going for us, and we didn't need the same kind of a stimulus. And mind you, these stimulus are slow coming through. I mean, it takes a long time for the stimulus to kick in.
Well, I know that in the U.S. there's been a lot of criticism, certainly I think from a number of different political perspectives, on the bailouts, because the big companies, some of these big companies, got major money handed to them, and they've turned around and had these record profit years, whereas average folks who may own those banks' money on their credit cards still are paying 18% interest. I'm wondering what you think about the bailouts that have happened.
Well, I think that bailing out the banks is one thing. Bailing out other companies, I'm not a big supporter of.
Like the car companies?
Yeah, I'm not a supporter of bailing out General Motors. I've been a GM dealer. I wouldn't be here today without General Motors. But the banking system, where confidence is so important, and you have people's deposits, which are guaranteed by the government up to a certain degree, I think that is very important. These big banks, and they're also interconnected. So I think, supporting the banks, good, bad, or indifferent, they did the right thing. I'm not so sure bailing out industrial companies is the right thing.
And yet you have these companies like GM, like Ford. My father worked at Ford for 20 years on the assembly line, and entire families, entire communities were built around these big companies at one point. In Ontario, Ontario is very dependent on those big car dealers. If those bailouts hadn't happened, if that money wasn't given to them, it seems like that pain would have trickled down pretty significantly to the average folks.
Well, anytime there's a bankruptcy, but you might as well get it over with. You get it over real quick, and everybody isn't going to be out of work, because people, if General Motors don't build cars, people are going to buy cars from Toyota or Volkswagen, or they'll buy it from Hyundai. But people are going to continue to buy cars, and if GM aren't there, they're going to buy cars from somebody else, and that's going to require factories and people working there and so on. Big disruption going through the time. But, the reason in the first place is because they didn't build the products that the public wanted or the quality. Now, the quality in cases like General Motors today is excellent, but the people aren't going in their showrooms like they used to.
Right.
And so, you know, bad management, you have to pay for it. I think that history will treat and look at George W. Bush better than they're looking at it now.